I want to bring in criminal defense attorney Robert Bianchi to talk about this. Big picture, what is happening here is because yesterday on the stand, Jennifer Crumbley testified about a conversation she had with her lawyer, an exchange she had with her lawyer prior to going to a warehouse where she was ultimately arrested, because she volunteered a conversation with her attorney. What door does that potentially open up here?
A massive door, John. The bottom line between the attorney-client privilege is it's sacrosanct between the client and the lawyer. However, the caveat that every attorney knows is that if any communication's made in the presence of a third party, or if the client reveals that information to a third party, they've waived the attorney-client privilege. So while being on the witness stand has got to be the worst place in the world, because one, you're allowing the conversation between your lawyer and your attorney to now get out into the public domain. And now prosecutors also have a right to cross-examine now on that information. They can't be left. As a former homicide prosecutor, I'd be screaming and yelling. She can't say something on direct examination about a communication, and now I'm unable to cross-examine her on it. So she opened the door for those to be released.
And what we've been watching in real time is a judge here. No judge wants to pierce attorney-client privilege.
Right.
I think always you're predisposed not to do that. But this was such an obvious moment, which begs the possibility of seeing more communication. And right now what the judge has done is taken text messages that exist between the Crumbleys and this attorney and given them to the prosecution to review. The prosecution has left the courtroom and is looking at those text messages, presumably to figure out if they want to pursue questions along that line. Can you explain that?
Yeah, John, in my opinion, what's happening right now, and I've been in this situation in which I'm now taking the text messages outside. I'm going through it with my team as prosecutors. I'm saying these following text messages are relevant, both maybe substantively to the crime or to attack her credibility on what she said on the witness stand. I'm going to identify what those text messages are, and in all likelihood, going to go before the court, because the court's going to be very careful, as you suggest, and say, Your Honor, based upon what I've reviewed, I think that these are relevant, and we should be able to bring this out before the jury, and the judge will make an ultimate determination if they're going to allow the prosecutors to use them.
Okay, so this is happening in real time right now. While this is happening, and I have one eye on the screen here to follow it, the jury is not in the courtroom right now. The jury, I think, thought it was going to hear the cross-examination of Jennifer Crumbley, the defendant, today. Aside from these text messages and the communications between the attorney and the defendant here, which may or may not come into evidence, what is it the prosecution wants to do in its cross-examination of Ms. Crumbley?
Okay, well, clearly what the prosecution wants to do. Now, this is a very novel, in my opinion, prosecution here. So they want to try to tie as much conduct to the parents to say that they knew or should have known that this was an ultimate outcome, that the mental health issues with the son, with the fact that he had a weapon, that they were on alert. And that's very difficult because the law requires, typically the law is dealing with the actions of what an individual does to another person, not a third party who refuses to intervene in what another person's going to do. But prosecutors are trying to show that it was so grossly negligent to allow him to stay in school, knowing his mental health condition, knowing that he had a weapon, that therefore, under their theory of the case, again, a novel theory and maybe a little bit of a dangerous one going down the road, they want to hold the parents accountable for their son's actions.
Robert Bianchi, thank you so much for helping us understand everything that's happening here. And it is a reminder, there's so much emotion in this trial, but there is a legal question here which to an extent is very dry and precedent setting and will matter very much beyond this trial going into the future. Thank you so much for explaining it so well.